I didn't think it was a big deal. That's what I need everyone to understand first. I was being honest. I was being transparent. I thought calling it a professional crush was actually mature and self-aware. I thought acknowledging the attraction while framing it as workplace appropriate somehow made it better. I thought putting the word professional in front of crush transformed it from something threatening into something harmless and acceptable. My husband, his name is Callum, had asked me why I talked about Dante so much. Dante is my coworker. Mid-30s, works in the same department, talented designer, confident without being arrogant, funny in meetings, just generally someone whose presence makes the workday more enjoyable. And yes, attractive. Very attractive. The kind of attractive that's hard not to notice. The kind that makes you pay extra attention when he speaks. The kind that makes you care more about his opinion than other colleagues. I'd been mentioning him a lot at home, quoting things he'd said, referencing his ideas, talking about projects we were collaborating on, sharing funny things he'd done or said, complaining when he was on vacation because work was boring without him, getting excited about days we had meetings together, just generally making his presence a significant part of my work narrative in a way that apparently hadn't gone unnoticed by Callum. "You talk about Dante constantly," Callum said one evening after I'd spent 20 minutes recounting a meeting where Dante had made everyone laugh with some observation about our client. "Do you have a crush on him? Because it really seems like you have a crush on him based on how much you talk about him and how your whole energy changes when you mention him." And I was honest. Completely honest. Thought honesty was the right approach. Thought transparency would reassure him rather than worry him. "It's just a professional crush," I said. Casual, dismissive of any real concern. Like this was a normal, acceptable thing that all adults experience in workplace environments. You know, where you're attracted to someone you work with, but it's contained to the professional sphere. Where you enjoy their company and think they're interesting, and yes, attractive, but it doesn't mean anything beyond work. It's not a real crush. It's professional, work-appropriate, harmless. Everyone has them. It's completely normal. Callum looked at me for a long moment. That look where someone is processing information they didn't expect, where they're adjusting their understanding of reality based on new data, where they're making decisions about how to respond to something that's bothering them more than they want to admit. "A professional crush," he repeated. Not a question, a statement, confirming what I'd said, making sure he heard correctly. Yes, it's a thing. It's when you have a small, harmless crush on someone at work. You acknowledge the attraction exists, but you keep it appropriate. You don't act on it. You don't pursue anything. You just enjoy the dynamic while maintaining professional boundaries. It makes work more fun. It's completely innocent. So you're attracted to your coworker. You think about him enough that you talk about him constantly at home. You look forward to seeing him. You get excited about meetings with him. You notice when he's gone. But you're calling it professional, so that makes it okay. It's not like I'm doing anything wrong. I'm not flirting inappropriately. I'm not pursuing him. I'm not planning to cheat. I'm just acknowledging that an attraction exists in a work context. Being honest about it. Not pretending it doesn't exist. That's healthy, right? That's mature acknowledgement of normal human feelings that happen in environments where you spend time with attractive, interesting people. "Interesting perspective," Callum said. Voice calm, measured. That dangerous calm that I should have recognized as a warning. Good to know that's how you define appropriate workplace relationships. Good to know that's what you consider harmless. Good to know that having a crush on someone is fine as long as you add the word professional in front of it. Really helpful to understand your boundaries and definitions. Something in his tone should have warned me. Something in the way he was processing this information should have signaled that I'd just given him something he was going to use. But I was confident in my framing. confident that professional crush was an acceptable category, confident that my honesty would reassure him rather than concern him. "I'm being honest with you," I said. "I'm not hiding anything. I'm telling you that I find my coworker attractive and interesting, but it's contained to work. It doesn't threaten us. It doesn't mean anything about my feelings for you. It's just a workplace dynamic that makes my job more enjoyable. Would you rather I lied about it? Would you rather I pretended I never find anyone but you attractive? That's not realistic. This is just being honest about normal human experience." "You're right," Callum said. "Honesty is good. Transparency is valuable. Thanks for being so open about your professional crush on Dante. Really appreciate you sharing that with me. I'll keep it in mind going forward." "When echoing your just today, cannot her an on show, or employer for it, can foul." 3 weeks later, I came home from work to find Callum in an unusually good mood. Better mood than I'd seen him in for a while, actually. Almost energized. Excited about something. He works in tech sales. Account executive at a software company. Decent job. Good at building relationships with clients. But he'd been complaining recently about a particular account that was difficult. High-value potential client, but challenging to connect with. Decision maker, who was hard to read and harder to impress. "Good day?" I asked, noticing the energy shift. "Really good day, actually. Remember that difficult account I've been trying to close? The one with the decision maker who never seemed interested no matter what approach I tried? Well, I figured out a new strategy. A relationship-building strategy that's been really effective. Been implementing it for the past few weeks, and it's working incredibly well. I think I'm going to close this deal. Pretty sure of it, actually." "That's great. What's the new strategy?" "I developed a professional crush on her," he said. Casual, matter of fact, like he was discussing a new CRM technique or prospecting method. The decision maker. Her name is Sloane. Mid-30s, really sharp, confident, attractive, and I realized I wasn't connecting with her because I was being too formal, too strictly professional. So I leaned into the attraction, let myself enjoy our interactions, started looking forward to calls with her, getting excited about meetings, thinking about her ideas even when we're not talking. You know, a professional crush, like you explained, where you're attracted to someone at work, but it's contained to the professional sphere, makes the work relationship more engaging, more dynamic, more successful. My stomach dropped, completely dropped. "You have a professional crush on a client?" "Yeah, using the exact framework you described. I'm attracted to her. She's intelligent, successful, has great energy, definitely someone I enjoy spending time with, even if it's just on calls and in meetings. I think about her more than strictly necessary for work purposes. I look forward to our interactions. I notice when we don't have scheduled touch points. But it's professional. Work appropriate. I'm not doing anything inappropriate. I'm just acknowledging the attraction exists and letting it make the business relationship more engaging. Exactly like you said, everyone has professional crushes. They're harmless. They make work more fun. Completely normal adult experience in environments where you spend time with attractive, interesting people." He was using my exact words, my exact framework, my exact justification. Throwing my logic back at me, but with his attractive female client instead of my attractive male coworker. And I hated every word of it. Hated hearing him describe being attracted to someone else. Hated him saying he thinks about her. Hated him admitting he looks forward to seeing her. Hated all of it, even though it was exactly what I'd admitted to him about Dante. "That's different," I said, knowing even as I said it that I had no logical basis for the distinction, knowing he was about to call me out on the hypocrisy, knowing I'd set this up perfectly for him. "How is it different?" he asked, genuinely curious, not defensive, just interested in my reasoning. "You described having a professional crush on your coworker. I'm describing having a professional crush on my client. You said it's normal and harmless as long as it's contained to work. I'm containing it to work. In fact, it's literally helping me work better. You said acknowledging attraction while keeping it professional is mature and healthy. I'm acknowledging the attraction while keeping our relationship entirely professional. You said everyone experiences this in environments where you spend time with attractive, interesting people. I'm experiencing exactly what you described. How is what I'm doing different from what you're doing with Dante? Because you're using it strategically. You're using the attraction to manipulate a client into buying from you. That's not the same as just naturally having a crush on someone you work with. But you said professional crushes make work more enjoyable and engaging, make you perform better because you care more about the person's opinion, make the workday more fun because you look forward to interactions. Isn't that also strategic? Isn't that also using attraction to improve work dynamics and outcomes? You're more engaged in projects with Dante because of the crush. I'm more engaged in closing this deal because of the crush. Where's the functional difference? It feels different when you're doing it. It feels like you're developing feelings for someone else. It feels threatening to our relationship. Interesting. So when you have a professional crush on Dante, it's harmless and mature. When I have a professional crush on Sloane, it's threatening and concerning. Can you explain the logic there? Can you articulate why the same behavior is acceptable for you but not for me? Can you give me a reason that isn't just pure double standard? I couldn't. Because there wasn't one. Because everything he was saying was logically consistent with what I'd said 3 weeks earlier. Because he was holding up a mirror to my behavior and I didn't like what I saw reflected back. Because hearing someone you love describe being attracted to someone else, thinking about them, looking forward to seeing them, even when they frame it as professional, feels terrible, feels threatening, feels like the beginning of something that could destroy what you have, regardless of whether it's labeled professional or not. Are you actually attracted to this client, or are you just doing this to make a point? I asked, hoping desperately that this was a lesson rather than reality. Hoping he was just showing me what my admission felt like, rather than actually developing feelings for someone else. Does it matter if it's professional, if it's contained to work, if it's not threatening to act on, if it's just making the work relationship more engaging? Then according to your framework, my actual feelings shouldn't matter. Only the professional context matters. Only the boundaries matter. Only the lack of inappropriate action matters. Whether I'm genuinely attracted to Sloane or just strategically engaging with the dynamic shouldn't be relevant to whether it's acceptable. Right? Ukaf attanio. Tains has hamku, wa okis, ihag, ofrau. The next several weeks were absolutely torturous, complete torture, worse than any explicitly jealous scenario I could have imagined, because it was all framed as acceptable professional behavior, using my own logic against me. Callum would come home and casually, almost innocently, mention Sloane. Mention calls they'd had, meetings they'd scheduled, progress on the deal. But woven into the professional updates were personal details that made it crystal clear this wasn't just business anymore, that there was genuine connection happening, that the professional crush was developing into something that felt very unprofessional from where I was sitting, experiencing it secondhand. Sloane and I had a great call today, he'd mentioned on a Tuesday while making dinner, chopping vegetables, like this was the most normal update in the world. We were supposed to talk for 30 minutes about implementation timeline and rollout phases, but we ended up on the call for over an hour, maybe closer to 90 minutes actually. Just clicked into this really great flowing conversation about industry trends and her vision for her company's future, where she sees growth opportunities, what challenges she's navigating with her board. Really substantive stuff. She's really impressive when you get her talking about strategy. Really thoughtful about how she approaches business development and competitive positioning. I love talking to her about this stuff. Her perspective is so different from most clients I work with. More sophisticated, more nuanced, more interesting. That's nice, I'd say through gritted teeth, forcing the words out. Hating it. Hating every single word. Hating that he was having hour-long conversations, 90-minute conversations, with an attractive woman about topics that clearly went far beyond just closing a deal. Hating that he described her as impressive and thoughtful and sophisticated. Hating that he used the word love in any context related to her. Hating that he found her interesting and different. Hating all of it, but completely unable to object without being a total hypocrite. Without admitting that what he was doing bothered me in ways that revealed my own behavior with Dante was equally inappropriate. She mentioned she's going to this industry conference next month, he said another evening, maybe a week later, while we were both on our laptops after dinner. Just dropped it casually into the silence. In Austin, 3 days of panels and networking. Asked if I'd be attending. I wasn't planning to go originally. You know how I feel about those industry conferences, usually kind of boring and not worth the time away from actual work. But now I'm thinking I probably should go. Really good networking opportunity for the account. And honestly, it would be nice to finally meet Sloan in person after all these calls and video meetings. We've built this great rapport remotely, but meeting face-to-face would probably help seal the deal, get her to final commitment. Plus, she's just interesting to talk to, beyond the strict business stuff. Having her there would make the conference way more worthwhile. Professional crush definitely makes these industry events worth attending instead of dreading them, you know? He was planning to travel to a different city to attend a conference, specifically to see her in person. Was describing her as someone who made events worthwhile instead of dreaded. Was talking about meeting her face-to-face like it was something he was genuinely looking forward to, beyond just business strategy. Was using the professional crush framing to justify what was clearly becoming an emotional connection that went way beyond work necessity. And I couldn't say anything, couldn't object, couldn't tell him not to go. Not without admitting that my own professional crush on Dante, the lunches that went long, the conversations that drifted from work to personal, the looking forward to seeing him, was exactly the same kind of boundary violation I was now experiencing from the other side. From the position of the person at home watching their partner develop feelings for someone else. We've started texting outside work hours, Callum mentioned casually one Saturday afternoon while we were at the grocery store. Examining produce like this was completely normal information to share. Started work-related, of course. She had a question about the proposal on a Sunday evening, I responded. We went back and forth about implementation details. But then it expanded to just friendly, non-work conversation. She sent me this funny article yesterday about corporate culture and performative productivity. I sent her a meme about client management and sales metrics. She sent back 3 laughing emojis. It's nice, you know. Makes the client relationship feel more personal, more connected, more like actual friendship instead of just transactional business interaction. That's good for business, right? Building genuine relationships rather than keeping everything strictly formal. That's what you always say about your relationship with Dante, that you're friends, not just colleagues. That the personal connection makes the work collaboration stronger. Same thing with me and Sloan. They were texting, on weekends, outside work hours, about non-work things, sharing articles and jokes and memes. She was sending him laughing emojis. He was describing their relationship as friendship, not just business. They were building personal connection under the guise of professional networking and relationship management. Exactly what I'd been doing with Dante for months. The text that started with work questions, but drifted into conversations about weekend plans, about shows we were watching, about random thoughts and observations. The sharing of funny content that had nothing to do with our projects. The creation of inside jokes and shared references. The development of emotional intimacy disguised as professional collegiality and productive work friendship. Every update felt deliberately designed to make me jealous. Every casual mention felt carefully calculated to show me what I'd been putting him through with my constant Dante updates. Every detail about his relationship with Sloane felt like precise, measured punishment for my relationship with Dante. And the absolute worst part was I couldn't object, couldn't complain, couldn't ask him to stop, not without being a complete, obvious hypocrite, not without admitting that what he was doing bothered me in ways that revealed my own behavior was equally problematic, equally threatening, equally inappropriate. Not without validating everything he was implying about professional crushes being fundamentally incompatible with committed relationships regardless of the professional framing or workplace context. Sloane said something really nice yesterday, Callum said one evening, about 3 weeks into this torture, sitting across from me at dinner. Said she really values our working relationship, that it's different from her interactions with other vendors, more genuine, more collaborative, more like partnership than typical client-vendor dynamic. Said she's never had such a good, comfortable connection with someone in my position before. Said she genuinely looks forward to our calls and meetings, that it's the highlight of her week sometimes when work is particularly stressful or challenging, that having someone who really understands her vision and business challenges makes everything feel more manageable. I think that's when I really knew for certain that the professional crush was mutual, when she admitted she looks forward to talking to me, that she thinks about our conversations after they end, that I make her work life better and more enjoyable. Pretty validating, honestly. Feels good to know the connection I feel is reciprocated. Mutual. The professional crush was mutual. This wasn't just him having feelings. She was explicitly expressing that she felt the same way. They were both looking forward to interactions, both thinking about each other outside their actual work touchpoints, both admitting that the other person made work more enjoyable and meaningful. This wasn't one-sided attraction being professionally managed and contained. This was mutual emotional connection actively developing and deepening under the cover of business relationship and client management. This was the beginning of something that could become much more if left unchecked. And he was telling me about it like it was a positive professional development instead of a relationship threat. Mutual. The professional crush was mutual. He wasn't just attracted to her, she was expressing that she felt the same way. They were both looking forward to interactions, both thinking about each other outside their actual work touchpoints, both admitting that the other person made work more enjoyable. This wasn't one-sided attraction being managed professionally. This was mutual emotional connection developing under the cover of business relationship. "Are you going to keep doing this?" I finally asked one night when I couldn't take it anymore. "Are you going to keep developing this relationship with Sloane, keep building this connection, keep having these conversations that clearly go beyond professional necessity?" "Why would I stop?" he asked, genuinely questioning. "It's working. The deal is progressing. She's engaged and responsive. Our professional relationship is strong. And like you said about your professional crush on Dante, it makes work more enjoyable, makes me look forward to my job, makes the day better, as long as I'm maintaining appropriate boundaries and not acting on anything inappropriate. What's the problem? Isn't that exactly what you told me about your situation with Dante? That acknowledging attraction while keeping it professional is healthy and mature." "I want you to stop," I said quietly, finally, admitting what I'd been feeling for weeks. "I don't like you having a professional crush on this client. I don't care if it's helping the deal. I don't care if it makes work more enjoyable. I want you to stop developing this connection with her. I want you to go back to purely professional interactions. I want you to stop thinking about her outside work. I want you to stop looking forward to calls with her. I want you to stop texting her about non-work things. I want it to stop." Interesting. So now you think professional crushes are inappropriate. Now you believe attraction to someone at work threatens the primary relationship. Now, you understand that professional doesn't actually make a crush acceptable. Now you recognize that emotional connection with someone who isn't your partner is problematic even if you're not physically acting on it. That's quite a reversal from what you said 3 weeks ago when you were defending your crush on Dante. It's different when I have to watch you do it, when I have to hear about it, when I have to imagine you developing feelings for someone else, even if you call them professional. It feels terrible. It feels like I'm losing you to someone else, even though you keep saying it's work appropriate. It feels like our relationship matters less than your connection with this client. Now you understand. Now you know exactly how I felt when you told me about your professional crush on Dante. Now you recognize that the professional framing doesn't make it less threatening or less hurtful. Now you see that your partner, developing emotional connection with someone else, feels awful even when they insist it's just work dynamics. Welcome to what I've been experiencing. Welcome to the feeling you created with your honesty about Dante. I stopped talking about Dante. Immediately, that same night. Created distance, stopped the texting outside work hours, stopped looking forward to meetings with him as highlights of my day, stopped thinking about his opinions more than other colleagues, stopped framing our relationship as a special professional friendship, went back to treating him like any other coworker rather than someone I had a crush on, professional or otherwise. Made it clear through my behavior that I was just there to work collaboratively, not to maintain an emotionally engaging dynamic with someone I found attractive. Dante noticed, asked if everything was okay between us, said our dynamic had changed, said he missed the easy rapport we'd had. I told him I was just trying to maintain more appropriate professional boundaries, that I'd let our work relationship become too personal, that I needed to refocus on purely professional interactions. He seemed confused but accepted it. The special treatment stopped. The extra attention stopped. The fun collaboration energy stopped. We were just colleagues again. Nothing more. And that was how it should have been all along. I stopped, I told Callum one evening. I stopped the professional crush thing with Dante. I created distance. I went back to purely professional interactions. No more texting outside work. No more looking forward to seeing him. No more thinking about him when we're not working. No more treating him as someone special versus just another colleague. I stopped all of it. Why? He asked. Not triumphant, not satisfied, just genuinely curious about my reasoning. Because I couldn't keep doing it while asking you to stop with Sloane. Because I couldn't maintain behavior that makes you feel the way I felt hearing about your professional crush. Because I couldn't be a hypocrite about something that actually matters. Because I realized that calling it professional doesn't make a crush acceptable when you're in a committed relationship. Because it was wrong, even if I convinced myself it was harmless. Because my marriage matters more than enjoying interactions with an attractive coworker. And what happened at work? What changed when you created that distance? He noticed immediately. Asked what changed. Seemed disappointed. Our projects are less fun now. Work is more boring without the dynamic we had. The special connection is gone. But that connection was inappropriate to begin with. It crossed boundaries, even if I was telling myself it didn't. So losing it is the right thing, even if it makes work less enjoyable. What about me? Do you want me to stop with Sloane? Yes. Obviously, yes. I hate everything about it. I hate hearing you talk about her. I hate knowing you think about her. I hate imagining you looking forward to calls with her. I hate that she said your conversations are the highlight of her week. I hate that you're planning to see her at a conference. I hate that you text about non-work things. I hate all of it. But I can't demand you stop if I'm not willing to stop myself. I can't have different standards for you than for me. So yes, I want you to stop, but I'm asking, not demanding, as someone who just stopped doing the same thing because I realized it was damaging what we have. Callum was quiet for a long moment, thinking, processing, deciding something. Then he said something that made everything suddenly clear in the most horrifying way possible. I was never developing a crush on Sloane. professional or otherwise. I made the whole thing up. There were no hour-long calls about industry trends, no texting outside work hours, no plans to attend a conference to see her in person, no mutual admission of looking forward to interactions, no building emotional connection under the guise of business relationship. I invented all of it to show you what it felt like, to make you experience what you were putting me through when you told me about your professional crush on Dante. I stared at him, frozen, processing. You made it up? All of it? Every single detail. Sloane is a real client, but we have a perfectly normal, strictly professional business relationship. I've never had an hour-long personal conversation with her. We don't text outside work hours about memes and articles. I'm not planning to attend any conferences to see her. We don't have inside jokes or special rapport. She's never told me I'm the highlight of her week. None of that happened. I created every detail to mirror your behavior with Dante back to you, so you could see what it actually looks like from the outside, so you could experience what I was experiencing when you casually mentioned having a professional crush on your coworker. So you lied to me. For weeks. You deliberately invented a fictional emotional connection with a client to manipulate me into feeling jealous, to teach me a lesson about appropriate boundaries. I held up a mirror. That's what I did. Every detail I told you about Sloane was actually something you told me about Dante. Every update about calls and meetings and texts and looking forward to interactions, that was your behavior reflected back to you. I didn't invent new behaviors. I just gender-swapped your actions and showed you what they look like when someone else is doing them. What they feel like when you're the person at home hearing about your partner's crush on someone at work, professional or otherwise. I thought back through all his updates about Sloane, reconstructed the conversations, and he was right, horrifyingly right. Every detail he'd mentioned, the long conversations, the texting outside work, the looking forward to interactions, the industry conference plans, the mutual acknowledgement of enjoying each other. I had actually done or said about Dante, the extended lunches where we talked about more than just work, the texting that started professional but drifted personal, the excitement about projects we collaborated on, the disappointment when he was on vacation, the admission to myself and to a work friend that I had a crush on him even if I called it professional. Callum hadn't invented anything. He'd just shown me my own behavior from a different angle, made me the observer instead of the participant, forced me to experience the jealousy, the insecurity, the fear, the hurt that comes from knowing your partner is attracted to someone else, and actively maintaining an emotionally engaging relationship with them regardless of how it's framed or labeled. I see what you did, I said slowly, carefully, and I understand why you did it, and I hate that it worked. I hate that I needed to feel jealous and threatened to understand that my behavior was causing you to feel jealous and threatened. I hate that I couldn't just believe you when you expressed discomfort. I hate that you had to fabricate an entire scenario before I'd take your feelings seriously. But you're right. Everything you implied about professional crushes being inappropriate, regardless of the professional label. You were completely right. I was wrong. I was rationalizing emotional infidelity. I was developing an inappropriate connection while telling myself the work context made it acceptable. And I'm sorry. I accept your apology, and I'm glad you stopped before it progressed further, before the professional crush became something more, before you crossed even more obvious lines. But we need to talk about why you thought it was acceptable in the first place. Why calling it professional magically made a crush on someone else seem fine. Why you needed me to show you rather than just listening when I expressed concern. Why you prioritized the enjoyment of interactions with an attractive coworker over my comfort. I think I convinced myself that because it was at work, because I wasn't planning to act on it physically, because I was being honest about it, that it was somehow okay, that acknowledging it openly made it less of a betrayal, that the professional context created different rules. But that was all rationalization. The truth is, I enjoyed the attention and attraction, and I wanted to keep enjoying it, so I created a mental framework that made it seem acceptable. Professional crush sounded so much better than emotional affair. Work-appropriate attraction sounded so much less threatening than developing feelings for someone else. But it was the same thing, just with different words. Exactly. You rebranded emotional infidelity as professional networking. You called inappropriate connection a harmless crush. You used work context to justify behavior that violated relationship boundaries. And when I showed you what it actually looked like, when I made you feel what you were making me feel, you immediately recognized it was wrong. Not because the behavior changed, but because you experienced it from the other side. We sat in silence for a while, both processing, both recognizing that something important had been revealed, that a boundary had been crossed and then reclaimed, that trust had been damaged but could potentially be repaired, that this conversation had forced honesty we'd been avoiding. "When did you decide to do this?" I asked eventually. "When did you decide to invent the Sloane situation to show me what my crush on Dante felt like?" "The night you told me about your professional crush. The night you explained it so confidently, like it was completely normal and acceptable. That night I realized you weren't going to stop based on my discomfort alone, that you'd rationalized it too completely, that you believed your own framework too strongly for me to dismantle it with just words. So I decided to show you instead, make you feel it instead of just hear about it, force you to experience your own behavior from the other side, so the rationalizations couldn't hold up anymore." "You planned this whole thing, from the beginning." "Yes, because you weren't listening, because my clearly stated concern wasn't enough, because you decided that calling it professional made it acceptable, so I made you see that professional crushes aren't professional at all. They're emotional connections with someone who isn't your partner. They're the beginning of infidelity. They're boundary violations regardless of the context. And you needed to feel that to understand it."